Hey guys, so this is part two on my treatment, my series on treatments for Crohn's. And in the last video, I talked about some of the medical ways of treating it, kind of Western medicine, pills, injections, etc., etc. And in this video, I figured I'd talk about some of the more some Eastern ways or non-traditional ways of treating Crohn's. So I have three lined up, and I don't know, some of you may have heard some of these, maybe not. But hopefully, my goal is to just expose you to these and maybe, if not use any of these treatments, maybe you guys can use them in addition and kind of supplement whatever treatment you guys are on. So the first one I'll talk about is Indian medicine or Ayurveda. So this is the first thing, being Indian myself, my parents and I were like, well, let's see what they have to offer. And with Ayurveda, the core philosophy is that your body has a way to heal itself, and by using essentially herbs, natural therapies, and kind of understanding your body's energy flow, you can create healing. So based off that, I went to an Ayurvedic doctor, and using some techniques like looking at your pulse, certain pressure points that show where your body's essentially hurting. I mean, for me, she checked this pressure point that's in between your thumb and I guess it'd be my index finger. And when it's tight, it means there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of intestinal issues, which was kind of cool, I suppose. And basically, what she said for me was that with you need to control your stress, but also you need to eat certain things to make sure that your stomach's okay. So I'm just going to run down a few things that Ayurveda suggests and kind of give my opinion on that. So the first thing they suggest is meditation. I think we all kind of saw this one coming. Meditation as a way to relieve stress, breathing to get good energy in, bad energy out, kind of refresh your body. I'm on board with that. I used to do meditation on my own, like after I worked out, because I just felt that it helps get your breathing in sync. It's good for you. But practically speaking, it takes a lot of willpower to meditate every single day, or if you're angry about something, to meditate, because I know when I'm angry, the last thing I want to do is meditate, because you're always like, I want to do something, and it's very hard to stay still. But it's a reasonable thing, and I think that it's something that we should probably adapt to our lives regardless. So that was something I was like, okay, that's something good. I should probably force myself to do it. The second thing that she said was food related. Now, Ayurveda is big on food and, what food are you putting into your body and what effect does it have? So first thing off the bat, she was like, limit your sugar. Now, in our society, sugar is a big part of what we eat. There's processed food, soda, even like our breads there's sugar in your bread too. It's weird. So, you kind of have to be conscious about that. For me, I generally don't have too much sugar outside of like the occasional cookie. Like, I don't really like soda, except Fanta. I love Fanta. But, something to keep in mind of is that, you can't really have as many sweets as you used to. And that's a lot harder than, saying, oh, here, take this medicine for a month and you'll be okay, right? It's a lifestyle change. But beside that, sugar, even protein, like you should, and by protein, I don't mean like, I'm vegetarian, but if you're non-vegetarian, like meat has protein. But like, especially like fiber, that's the word I'm looking for. Fiber for your intestine, especially when you have Crohn's, it almost like, think of it this way, it's kind of like scratching your intestine on its way down because it's so hard to break down. Cellulose, the human body can only process certain forms of it, and essentially the cell wall is what we can't process. So, for example, beans, like the actual beans, like green beans, black beans, that's fine, but the casing they come in, like this casing of a pea pod, it's soft, but at the same time, it's a little bit hard. And when you swallow it, a lot of the fibers, they can get stuck in your stomach, and they're not super easy. Now, you need to have some fiber, of course, but the Ayurveda doctor suggested to me that kind of limit that and make sure you're not eating too much of that. Another thing she suggested was not eating raw foods and cooked foods at the same time. Now, this I'd never heard of because I never really thought that there was much difference, but in what she explained to me was that when you eat raw foods like raw fruits, raw vegetables, salad, your body releases different enzymatic juices in your stomach to break it down, versus when you have cooked foods, I mean, cooked vegetables, cooked meat, anything, your body releases a different types of juices. And when you eat them together, your body doesn't exactly know which ones to put, so it kind of puts both or not entirely enough of one or the other. And due to that, it can create some indigestion because, well, the food's not being digested. I found this interesting, and at first, there's like, well, what's the backing behind this? But I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? A lot of people, you eat a salad and you're like, okay, that's fine, but then you eat something, cooked or something like a little bit, I don't want to say heavier, but something that's been cooked for a little long time. You're like, that's not really sitting well. And if you had one or the other, it wouldn't really be an issue. But when you have them together, it doesn't sit well, and that's why a lot of people, don't like salads, because they're like, well, I don't mind the flavor, but I get a little bit gassy afterwards. And one of the reasons could be that your body isn't, supposed to handle those two things at once. Now, but thinking of that, the question brings up fruits, salad, like things in salads, cucumbers, tomatoes. Like, well, if you can't have them together, when do you have it? So one thing that she suggested to me was that when you come back from school, instead of having a snack of milk and toast, that's something I have, just something small to get me through until dinner, have a bowl of fruits. Now, this is kind of hard because it sounds very simple. Oh, just have an apple or have a cup of blueberries, strawberries. But having fruit every single day after school is very hard. And I got into so many fights with my mom about, I just can't keep eating fruits. And it makes sense because fruits are made of what? Vitamins, minerals, a little bit of cellulose, sugar, and water. There's so much water in fruits, and that's great for your body. I mean, especially with Crohn's, we get dehydrated because we're not absorbing enough water. But fruits, you eat a bunch of fruits, you think you're full, and then very quickly you start feeling hungry again. And then you're like, well, shoot, I need to eat something else. But you're like, well, then I don't want to spoil my appetite. It starts a cycle, and it's very annoying. So, I mean, personally, I tried that. It didn't really work for me. I did start eating more fruits, though. What I started to do was I alternated days where I had fruits. I would eat a lot of fruits on the weekend because, on the weekend your schedule is a bit more flexible, so it doesn't matter. And I started drinking shakes after the fruits to kind of compensate for the lack of carbs I was getting, and to make sure I actually had enough energy. And you can check my video on shakes on my channel as well. But that was a decent suggestion that was good, but it might not work for you depending on what type of person you are, and that's totally understandable. The next suggestion that the Ayurvedic doctor gave was some herbs and stuff. So I'm sure a lot of you don't have much knowledge about Indian herbs, and it makes sense. Some of them are kind of obscure, but a lot of Indian herbs that we use are for digestion, and they're already in our food when we cook, but by isolating them and taking them in slightly larger quantities, they do have a good effect. So, for example, the first one she suggested to me was something for my morning digestion and for our stools. Now, with Crohn's, it's a little awkward, but pooping can be a little bit hard because you're not absorbing everything. Your body's like, well, this is kind of half processed. I can't get enough out of it. Okay, I'll poop it. So it's not always the most comfortable. And also, you're losing a lot of minerals when you're not, fully digesting stuff. So the first thing she gave me was a little mix of neem, the neem tree, some of its stem, and bilwa. It's another Indian plant. And they're all powdered up, small capsule. Take it first thing in the morning when you wake up with a glass of water or a sip of water. And the first 2 days, I was like, nothing's really changing. But by the third day, it was actually working. I was quite amazed. My bowel movements were relatively smooth. Again, this is totally weird, I understand, but it really helped with my digestion and, the feeling that, okay, everything's going well. It's not, not that it's hurting, but it's not as rough and it's smooth. I mean, ideally, you don't want either too loose or too hard stool because it's just not, it means your body's not doing well. So that definitely helped. Very easy to take, didn't have much of a taste. I mean, with all these capsules, sometimes you might get like a little bit of powder in your tongue. It's a tiny bit bitter, but nothing too much actually. It's pretty good. That worked. The second thing she suggested was a powder that I would eat with dinner, like the first bite of dinner on like when you're basically on an empty stomach, and you're supposed to just chew it like with the first bite of food. So if you're having rice, have a little rice. If you're having pizza, have like the first bite of pizza, something like that. And it was good. It definitely lowered, like, it helped digest the food. I felt that, sometimes with Crohn's you eat, and this happens to me even now, but your stomach feels really heavy after you eat because I'm not even sure why. I don't really have a reason. It just doesn't really sit entirely well. Even though it's a good food, even if it's home cooked food, this doesn't always sit well. So it definitely helped with that. It helped with digestion. Also, sometimes with Crohn's, you might have a lot of gas afterwards. This definitely helped with that. It was, flavor-wise, though, I will admit, it tasted pretty bad. It took me a while to get used to it. You have to put a decent amount, like about 1 tablespoon, and 1 tablespoon doesn't sound like a lot until you're eating 1 tablespoon of this stuff. Well, let me just put this charging. Yeah, I really do not want this video to go to waste. But yeah, sorry, what I was saying, I was talking about the powder, right? And this powder has a bunch of different things. It has like 12 different, herbs and spices. Some of them taste good on their own. They do not taste well together. But it definitely does work, I'll say, as much as it tastes pretty bad. I just wash it down with some water really quick, and that's the end of it. And it has a lot of things that, you kind of associate with good digestion. Pepper, like black pepper, turmeric, haldi, hing. Haldi is the Indian name for turmeric. Even some like other, some mint leaves, obviously, because mint's also really good for like purifying digestion. So that was just one suggestion that she gave that I thought it took a little bit getting used to. Not ideally for someone who has really sensitive palate. I have a sensitive palate, but I kind of bit the bullet literally and ate it. So that was good. And the third one was something that I didn't really see the effect of. She gave me this plant essentially that they had turned into a pill. They just mash it up, and you would take it at night. 2 pills, a little bit bitter, but there was no casing. They were just a raw pill, and I felt that it's hard to explain because when you're taking 3 things at once, you're not really sure what's doing what, like what's the benefit, what isn't working. So I couldn't really see what it was doing. I think it definitely had some good effect because, after starting all 3, I started to feel a little bit better, but it's not, it's hard to put, all your belief into it. So that's something to consider, that some things in Ayurveda are probably good for you, but you can't really see them acting, so you're not, confident, is this even working, right? So that's kind of like leading to my last point with, Ayurveda as a whole. And this video is getting kind of long, like 15 minutes, so maybe I'll make another one about the other 2. But Ayurveda is it's kind of like a faith medicine, like on, scientific aspect, the herbs, it's not the herbs that are doing all the work, it's like the chemicals and the natural properties that are working, like turmeric's anti-inflammatory properties. I mean, there are a lot of medicines that are based on it, so it's going to work. Mint leaves and how they mint, neem, that stuff like works in your stomach. It's proven to have, digestive benefits. But at the same time, you have to believe that, these herbs are going to work, and that, by meditating, by, trying to lower my stress level, that, okay, there'll be a way to kind of control Crohn's. And honestly, for me, I found that as much, even being Indian, like I felt that it wasn't the treatment for me because I just did not have enough faith that it was working to cure my Crohn's. Well, not cure it. Of course, you can't cure Crohn's, but mitigate it. It was something that I could do in addition to like some other treatment because I just felt that it wasn't working well enough. Now, this, of course, is a long-term medicine. I mean, you would have to take this for, at least a month, at least, 6 to 8 weeks to see the full benefits of it. And I was like, no, I didn't know my condition well enough back then. I was like, I don't know if I can wait that long because, with the Crohn's, the longer you wait, the more damage that your, intestines are taking or wherever it is in your digestive system. Additionally, it depends on your doctor. Now, this is a really major point I like to emphasize, that if your doctor is good, you will have a good experience. I mean, my doctor, yeah, she gave me some things that worked, but it didn't really feel like she was connecting with me as a patient. She was just kind of, I mean, I remember I showed her my labs from, my blood labs with the, the protein levels and everything. She was like, oh, okay. And then she didn't really pay attention. So I felt that, well, okay, but, it didn't really account for all that stuff. Like, it's not, Ayurveda it's separate from like the Western medical system. So they may not always, look at your lab and say, oh, I see this, this, this. Maybe we should address like your iron deficiency, for example. But they didn't do that. So that's something I didn't really like. Very recently, though, my dad had a colleague who suggested this Ayurvedic doctor based in Miami when we FaceTimed. And that doctor was he understood kind of like, yeah, you're missing, these vitamins. Maybe take those in addition to that. Also, Ayurveda has a physical aspect of, you need to have certain massages. You need to open up certain energy gates inside your body. And he addressed that versus the other doctor didn't. So it really depends on your doctor. You need to make sure you have a good Ayurvedic doctor. But you need to have belief that this treatment will work. And for some people, that's easy and that's great. I mean, I know my great aunt, she had some medical problem and she went on Ayurveda and it worked for her. I mean, that's amazing. But for me, I just felt that it could work, but it just wasn't the right medicine for me. So that's kind of Ayurveda in a nutshell. And if you have any questions, put it in the comments below. I know I said I'd go through all the different treatments that aren't Western medicine, but I think I'll just make another video on that and I'll post it sometime soon. All right, see you guys.